The Calgary Police Service Child Abuse Unit has charged a man as a result of a sexual assault investigation. The investigation began in early January of 2017 when a 17-year-old male came forward to report that he had been sexually assaulted. Police believe the accused identified the youth as vulnerable and offered him drugs. The teen accepted what he thought was crystal meth, but it is also believed that he was given GHB to incapacitate him before he was assaulted. As the investigation progressed, using numerous strategies, the teen was supported by the Sheldon Kennedy Child Advocacy Center. On Sunday, March 12, 2017, a 19-year-old male victim went to the suspect's home in the 1000 block of 16th Avenue Southwest. The man exited his apartment and allegedly chased down the teen with a large knife. The man was arrested and the teen was unharmed. The investigation is continuing. In relation to the 17-year-old victim, Robin Adair Wortman, age 62, has been charged with sexual assault. In relation to the 19-year-old victim, Wortman has been charged with assault with a weapon. The investigation has also led to Wortman being charged with 2 counts of communication to procure sexual services from a victim under the age of 18. He will next appear in court on Wednesday, March 15th for all matters.
Can you tell us a little bit about, so when the incident happened on Sunday, were police in the process of preparing to charge Wortman with the other crime already, or how far along was that they could kind of go serendipitously 2-for-1 at the same time?
Well, I can't speak to the investigative strategies, but as I had mentioned, the first victim had come forward in January, and we were in the process of conducting that investigation.
Sorry, I was wondering if you could elaborate on what vulnerable means. You said you couldn't answer specifically about this case, but what does that mean?
Yeah, I would identify vulnerable as someone who's struggling with, it could be a multitude of issues or one, whether it be homelessness or substance abuse, or perhaps they've somehow been failed by the support systems that one would hope would be available to them. That's sort of how I would describe vulnerable. And when we're dealing with kids under the age of 18, right, you would want them to have that support in place.
And it's believed that the accused targeted these vulnerable people specifically?
Well, the investigation is ongoing, but that is our belief, yes.
Do we know the purpose for why the 19-year-old was at that apartment on Sunday?
We are looking into that, and again, it's part of the ongoing investigation.
Does this person have a history of this kind of activities or criminal behavior? The person who's been charged.
Wortman doesn't have any previous dealings with the police, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Is the accused previously in his job or anything? Did he have any? Was he in a position of power or anything like that? Was he perhaps a teacher? Did he deal with kids?
No, teacher, no, that wasn't his occupation from my understanding.
How were police alerted to what happened on Sunday? Was there a 911 call from the 19-year-old? Was it somebody in the neighborhood? How did they find out what happened on Sunday?
Because of the commotion that occurred at the residence, the police were notified.
Gotcha. So it wasn't like police were nearby or something like that. They were called.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So is this in an apartment building?
I believe so, yes. I personally haven't been to the address, so I believe it is in an apartment building.
Is there a concern or a belief that there may be more victims that have not come forward?
That's always a concern and part of our investigation to move forward. I mean, when we lay the charges of communication to procure a sexual encounter with a person under the age of 18, that's always a concern that someone is out seeking that.
Sorry, one last question just on kind of the arrest with relation to, because I just want to make sure I have it clear. So when police made the arrest on Sunday, was there internal communication that said, oh, by the way, we're looking for this guy as well, or was it the same detectives who were kind of working on the same case, or how did the dots get connected that it was the same guy?
I would suggest that the Calgary Police Service has a good communication strategy. So when someone's working on an investigation, there's just notifications that get made.
Gotcha. And sorry, I apologize. I came in a little late, so I apologize if it was asked before. But how is the 17-year-old victim doing? Or Sam Sheldon here, that he was involved with the Sheldon Kennedy Advocacy Center. How's that victim doing right now?
Well, I mean, like any victim, I mean, I'm sure they have their struggles, but ultimately the fact that they've made the disclosure and they're getting that help is the biggest step.
Those two charges of communication to procure sexual services, are those related to the 17 and 19-year-old, or are those two separate charges to other potential victims?
So the way the criminal code is written is that those particular charges do not identify a victim, just in the wording of it. So it's seeking, so it's not necessarily naming an individual. And so no, it does not directly connect to the two victims.
Did the 17-year-old and 19-year-old know each other at all? Is there any connection between that?
I can't speak to their relationship.
So Sheldon, maybe just talk about your thoughts on this entire investigation, the fact that the 17-year-old did come forward and is receiving support at your facility. I guess just your general thoughts about this particular incident.
Well, I mean, I obviously won't and can't speak about the case directly, but I do know that our frontline resources at the Sheldon Kennedy Child Advocacy Center offer great support for individuals that come forward and the process. So, but you know, I think when we look at what I'm doing here today, I'm not up here for this conference, but we're up here for a week-long conference on actually these issues to understand the impact. So when we look at a case such as this, the incident is important, but I think when we look at you know, what we try to focus on is the actual impact, and what's the impact going to be on this individual or these individuals that go through this process. So, you know, if we look at the stats, the 72% of, you know, people in treatment centers that and involved in treatment centers disclose early childhood abuse. I mean, you know, kids that have been abused are 26 times more likely to experience youth homelessness. Kids that are abused are 30% higher risk of high school dropout rates. So the impact is real, and we also know that you know, when kids are vulnerable, which I understand in this case, the potential of being vulnerable is there. It becomes even that much more risky.
Perhaps, Sheldon, how important is it for obviously victims to come forward?
Well, I think one of the things is that, you know, when we look at a lot of times, I mean, if I look at my situation, you know, I would have had interactions with police that were probably on the negative side. So, you know, a lot of times when kids, you know, have been hurt as a young kid, you know, they end up living a type of life that is a risky type of lifestyle, which ends up having them, you know, maybe being confronted by police about something they've done, or social services, or whatever it might be. So for me, I think that being able to take the risk to understand that what I know about the services and the systems and the people that do this work in our community are definitely there to listen and to understand and do the best we can to help. So I think it's important to tell your story. I think it's critical to tell your story as the first step to be able to move forward in the healing process. And I also think that there's a lot of hope, right? A lot of times as people that have been through this stuff, we don't believe that there's a way out. We don't believe that we'll ever be able to be the people that we want to be. But the first step is telling your story and then receiving the help. And I think that I don't know too many other places that I've traveled to across this country and internationally that are in a position to handle these cases and disclosures such as us.
Sorry, I know you touched on it in your first answer a little bit, but speaking not specifically to this case, but in general, how much more are teenagers who live these quote-unquote vulnerable lifestyles, how much more are they at risk to be a potential target in these kind of situations?
Well, I mean, what we're talking about pretty much right now, and what we're really trying to understand in this work across this country, and specifically within the systems that have the legislative mandate to do this work in our city and province, is the impact of trauma. And, you know, if you look at the gas and the brake, right, a lot of times kids that have suffered different types of early childhood trauma, the brake just doesn't work quite the same as kids that haven't. And, you know, and a lot of times they live a riskier lifestyle, and they become more vulnerable. And they become more vulnerable because of the situations that they've been put in because of what's happened to them. And so, you know, to me, I think all kids are vulnerable. It's up to all of us to pull on the rope and be as due diligent as we can in protecting our youth. But I do know that kids that have, you know, suffered early and have been caught up in the system for whatever reason that might be are even more vulnerable.
Sheldon, are predators becoming more elaborate, more savvy in how they're luring young people?
Well, I think that one of the most misunderstood theories around child abuse, child sexual abuse, is the grooming process. And, you know, I mean, what did I learn in school? People that hurt kids be careful of the white van that cruises around town because they're going to get you. Well, 98% of the kids that come through the Child Advocacy Center, they know their abuser. 46% of them is a parent or caregiver, so stranger danger's out the window. And so I think, you know, really understanding the grooming process, I mean, when we look at people that are hurting our kids, they want to be in a position of power. They want to be in a position who they're not going to be questioned, right? So when we look at these types of cases and the shock, right, the shocker of this person, you know, whatever position they might be in, such as the Graham James being Hockey Man of the Year, what we know today is that's not a shocker. That's actually quite common for a position for these individuals to put themselves in, because what does it do? It gives them access to kids, and that's what they want.